Ben, I'm just testing. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Giselle.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, Giselle.
Rose says hi.
Couldn't tell if that was you or Lucy. Not in magnifying glass.
Okay. Jackie's sister.
Hi, Jean.
And
Hi.
Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Casey. How are you? Good.
Hi, Kevin.
Bonsoir.
We're getting really professional with our setup. We're
Yeah,
going
you have-
high tech.
Doing a great job, Ben.
Do you have a
Yep.
speaker?
I do have a speaker today. Yep, so we can hear you loud and clear.
Before you know it, Ben, you're in Hollywood.
Nah, 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 nah.
Okay.
So that's the thing. I found it at home.
It's not gonna be a quiet meeting. Hey, this is my house.
I need to consider if I was here assuming with the kids. I mean,
Well,
kids let loose in the
I
house.
have the
Yeah.
option to be you know.
Well, same thing with the, when we did the interview. I went to my mother's. Courtesy call, so I went there, and then that's- I was like, what's your plan? It's quiet. We have to- we need to leave.
Uh-oh.
What? Everything okay?
Ben, I've been, no, I'm okay. I thought I was changing your your agenda online on the Google Docs, but no, that's okay. I'm on the minutes. I'm good. I was taking from one and moving, so.
Gee,
Yeah, Gerard's supposed to be here. And,
do you know if the student reps are coming?
I don't believe so. No, no.
Hi, Emery.
Yeah. so the first one is because
Anne Marie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, Sharon.
Hello, Mr. Sirwa. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Glad you could join us.
I'm glad to be here.
Is Lucy live or remote?
Lucy is here in person.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Hello, Mr. Vanier. How are you, sir?
I turned off my sound. I'm great.
It is 6:30 if you would.
Yeah, well, we have a quorum, so I think we'll go ahead and start. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:30. The first item on the agenda is we need a motion to conduct remote meeting pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 403A.
I make a motion to conduct a remote meeting pursuant to 1 MRSA 403A public proceedings through remote access during declaration of state of emergency due to COVID-19.
Motion by Jean,
Okay, and you seconded it.
second
Okay.
by Josh.
And by Josh. So in favor? We're all in
All those in favor? Jean, are you in favor? Thank you. So live board members, we're going to have to speak louder than we usually do, just so that the online folks can hear us. Oh, Gerard is here.
Okay, and the next item is the period of public participation on the items on this agenda.
So the way this works is I have, when we put out the agenda, I put out information on how you can access these board meetings. We are live on YouTube. So this is our YouTube live feed. It's a few seconds delay. And there's a live chat that goes on YouTube. And the public can participate by chatting that way, or they can email me. So I'm monitoring my email, monitoring public chat. And I think even if they're late and they're not within the public participation timeline, I think we should field any questions from the public. So I'll keep monitoring that throughout the meeting, and I'll let you know if we have any public participation.
Okay. At this time, is there any public participation?
Anyone out there in Zoom land that wants to talk about anything?
Guess not.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
we'll move on. The next item is the approval of the minutes for the March 16th emergency meeting, which you received in your packet. So can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion by Lina,
Elena, is there a second? By Alex?
second by Alex.
Okay, are there any questions on this, on the minutes? Okay, if not, we'll take a vote in favor of approving the minutes.
All those in favor?
All in favor.
That's everyone. Hi, Gerard.
Hi, Gerard. Okay, and the next item is the approval of the financial statements. And we have the March revenue and expenditure reports. And I'll entertain a motion to approve those reports.
Motion by Elena,
Elena, and seconded by Josh.
second by Josh.
Okay, are there any questions on the statements, financial statements? If not, we'll vote whether or not to approve the March revenue and expenditure reports. In favor?
All members in favor.
Yes. Okay, and next is, we'll need a motion to approve the April expenditure report.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Josh,
Josh, okay, is there a second?
second by Gerard.
Gerard, hi, Gerard. Okay, any questions on that report? If not, we'll take a vote in favor of approving the April expenditure report. All in favor? Okay. Okay, our next item is, we'll turn you over to Ben. He'll give us some updates.
Yeah, so first thing I want to update you on, these are just our regular rolling agenda items for COVID-19 updates. The first is the Department of Education updates. We did have a virtual meeting with the commissioner last week, and just, got to speak with her about what's concerning to us and see what her thoughts were about that. And the first thing that we discussed was preparation. What is she advising, or what is the department advising districts on school budget preparation? She wanted to let us know that Maine School Management has drafted an executive order to provide flexibility in budget preparation and subsequent voting on budgets. That has supposed to have gone to the governor's desk and for further review, and we're supposed to hear back anything. I was expecting to hear back something last week. We did not. As of now, we haven't heard back about that executive order, but there is some language that is being worked out to provide us some flexibility. We don't know what that means, flexibility. It just means that we're looking for some guidance about how do we have a budget meeting when you can't have more than 50 people? How do you proceed with budgeting when you don't know if the state's going to come back and withhold subsidies? So we're supposed to have something coming out to us soon about that. We wanted to know about truancy procedures. If students have quote unquote gone off the grid with remote learning, how do we proceed with that? Do we follow our regular truancy, or do we follow another protocol? The governor wanted us to avoid using truancy as a punitive measure, but more of a well-child measure. So she did advise us that if we wanted to contact local law enforcement because we are concerned about a learner that is not connecting with their teacher or with the school, we contact them and we ask the law enforcement to do a well-child check-in. So we've sent several letters to families reminding them, certified letters, that their children are not participating. And now we've gone above and beyond that. We've entered into some well-child check-ins, not a lot, but several of them, just to make sure that children are safe. So those protocols are in place. Was a question about graduating classes of 50 or smaller. Can we hold a regular ceremony? And the guidance from the commissioner was, yes, you can, but be wary that the governor's guidance could change at the end of the month. So right now, the governor has a phased plan that says in June, her guidance will move from groups of 10 people to groups of 50 people, but that's only contingent on the success of this phase. So the commissioner wanted us to be wary about that. Don't make plans that might change based on the governor's guidance. So in a few minutes, I'll share with you a survey we put out to seniors and the data we got from that and what seniors themselves are asking for their graduation. So I'll share that with you in a minute. Should we be encouraging teachers to meet face-to-face with students, especially those students who are having connectivity issues or are not succeeding in remote learning? The commissioner's guidance is to use that only as a last option. You can have teachers meet, especially with if there are IEP needs that are not being met. That would definitely be a way to do that, but she's asking that we try to exhaust all efforts before we do that. So try to arrange for these video chats as a first tier level of communication, and only as a last ditch effort we should promote face-to-face meetings. So that was another guidance. There were questions around the summer meal program, how long we can continue with the program the way that it is right now. We did get waivers to say that we can continue the current meal program until June 30th. So that means we can continue the door-to-door deliveries until then. After June 30th, it looks like the summer meal program will go back to what it was in the past, a site-based summer meal program where you would have to go to the site to pick up your meals. But that could change, but right now we have up till June 30th. So our plan is to continue up till June 30th the way that it is, and then adjust accordingly based on what we have for guidance at that time. What happens? Oh, that's more school lunch, so I covered that. Should we anticipate any subsidies being held due to the economic downturn? The commissioner's answer at that time was no. Last week or the week before was no, we shouldn't. Since then, there's been a lot more rumors around, superintendents and business managers that this may happen. Today, I was on a webinar with Tyler Baskus, who works for the department, and he said that that's only going to happen based on the revenue forecast that happens usually around August. The state's going to look at the revenue forecast at that time, and the governor is going to have to make some big decisions based on what things look like. We know that we are we rely very heavily on tourism in Maine, and if our tourism is hit very hard, it's not going to be pretty. So it's a lot more of wait and see. One thing that she made clear is she's not looking to to withhold any subsidy for this fiscal year. So our May, June subsidies are not going to be withheld. And then looking into next year, right now her plan is to move forward with the ED 279s that she gave us and for budgeting purposes. And she hopes to not have to take some of that money back, but that's all based on, you know, the legislature and how things work out. When will the CARES funds be available to districts? It was supposed to be available last week. The DOE had to kick back some questions because there was some confusing language that was it was contradicting what the feds were saying based on what their guidance was. So we're waiting for clarification on that. Tyler did say today that, you know, if they get that tomorrow, then they can release that as soon as possible. So we're waiting for the applications for our CARES funds to open very soon. So that was pretty much to highlight what was talked about with our meeting with the commissioner.
Okay, we'll go on to reintegration plan, which we received, and Ben can.
Yep, I'm going to share my screen. If you remember when this all started, I shared with you a remote plan, a remote learning plan. This is an extension of our remote learning plan, but it's called our reintegration plan. We're in the initial phases of planning for this. This is a document that will change often, and it will be based on facts that were given from the state, based on facts were given from the Department of Education and the Maine CDC. But it's essentially our plan to return to school. The plan has three components. It's component one is the return to school roadmap. Part two is our reintegration teams, and then part three is our timeline for reintegration. And I'm just going to highlight these for you tonight. Again, it's a plan in progress, so just keep in mind that although I am presenting this to you tonight the way that it is, tomorrow is a new day, and there may be revisions to this plan, and it's all based on what guidance we're given from our bosses. We were given a document that came across through Maine School Management called the Return to School Roadmap. And it's a wonderful document that's helped us frame our own plan. We're using it as a guide, not as a how-to document, but it's a wonderful document. If you get a chance to go see it, returntoschoolroadmap.org. It's pretty comprehensive. You can tell that it was written for larger school districts because it covers a wide variety of different things. But what we really like about it is it's a whole focus on a return to school that's even more than just the instruction piece. It's the wellness piece. How are we going to keep our staff and our students safe, not only from COVID-19, but from all of the other things that have happened with the changes in their lives that are really concerning. It's a focus on, how we're going to continue to get our kids to post-secondary education. It's a focus on our facilities, making sure that those are up to date and safe as well, school operations, and as well as technology. So we're using this as a guide to help us through our plan. And we will use the full framework, although we are pretty much ahead on some of these, especially in regards to technology and what we've been doing with our facilities. We feel pretty confident in it, but again, we're going to be hitting on all the components as we continue to work with it. Beyond the return to school roadmap that we're using for that resource, we've put together some teams that we hope are going to help guide this plan as it continues to evolve. And the teams that we have right now are specific to our core team, which is the Return to School Committee. It's primarily made up of your Valley Unified administrators and your building administrators, as well as a few directors and coordinators. We also have the Health and Wellness team. It's going to be chaired by Peter Karen. It has all of school nurses, all of the school social workers, and all of the school physical education teachers, because we really want to hit on every aspect of health and wellness as we're putting this plan together in our plan to return to school, especially if remote learning needs to continue in the fall. Then we move to our restoration of instruction team. It's broken up into two subcommittees. One is the instruction subcommittee. That's headed by our curriculum coordinator, Sharon Chassie. It's going to include all of our curriculum leaders on our PLC teams that Sharon works with regularly, as well as our guidance counselors. And then our principals will be brought in when they need to. We don't want to overwhelm our principals because they have their own building responsibility things that are going on. So that's going to be the core team right now, made up of those curriculum leaders and guidance counselors. And then the technology subcommittee is led by Giselle, as with the technology coordinators and our contracted service provider as well. And then our final team is the, let me see if I can hide this here, school site team, with a focus on our facilities and transportation in one subcommittee. And that's with Paul Chassie, Peter Saucier, Kevin, Lisa Boyan, and Lucy as well. So really making sure that our schools are safe, our central offices are safe, and how we're going to continue to conduct business if we have to go back to home learning, back to school-based, homework, work from home, work from school, or if we have to do a combination of both because we get new guidance. And then our school nutrition subcommittee is headed by Melanie Lagasse, and she's also choosing some of the head cooks to be part of that subcommittee. With the team approach, our hope is that it's not just the Valley Unified folks sitting in their central offices trying to make decisions. We want to have the people who are living it, breathing it, part of the decision-making process, so we can really get a wide variety of stakeholders as part of the process. We may be asking board members to sit in on some of these meetings from time to time, just because you are the front line to the public. A lot of public asks you your opinion on things, so we may ask you from time to time to sit on these as well. And the focus of our teams are going to be very simply maximizing our learning opportunities. What I mean by that is if and when we can implement a summer school program or a harvest school program or a Christmas break school program, February break school, we're going to have to maximize on all of the learning opportunities that we have starting with this summer. And have a plan for how we're going to recapture a lot of this lost learning. We also are looking at a way to start the upcoming school year, especially the lower elementary levels, by grouping and regrouping kids. It may be less looking like grade level specific. It might be more about, okay, this group of students needs these things, so we're going to be grouping these students for these things to catch them up. And then a whole other group of students are doing these things, at least till harvest break. And I'll share with the timeline with you. We think that's going to be essential in catching students up, because I think if we just try to plan for business as usual and put our kindergarten students in grade 1 and our grade 1 students in grade 2 and say good luck, I think we're going to be setting ourselves up for a lot of headaches. I think we're going to have to recapture a lot of learning before we do that, because for some of these kiddos, March 13 was the last school day they had, and although they may be engaging in remote learning, it's hard to make up for classroom instruction that has been lost. The second thing is safe working environments, healthy staff. You notice that when you came in tonight, we had you take your temperature, answer a few questions. That's going to be our new normal for a long time. We may have to do that with students as they re-enter the building. And how do we do that on such a large scale? So we're going to have to think about all of those things with regards to a safe working environment, especially if the commissioner's guidance has not changed and grouping of 50 or less goes into August, September, October. How do we do that in a school setting? Alternate day workday schedules. We've got a plan for A, B, or C with regards to school and work scheduling. I think if we only plan for one way to do things and we're not ready for a variety of things, we're not going to be ready at all. So we're going to look at staggered days. We're going to look at on-off days. So maybe this half of your students in your class are going to school on a white day. This half of your students are going to school on a green day, and they have to alternate. And then on alternate days when they're at home, they're tuning into remote learning and all the things that looks like. So we've got to really iron out because if we're not allowed to bring all the students together at once, we've got to have a plan for what that looks like. And I don't have the answers today, but I just know that's going to be part of the teamwork of how we plan that and organize that. And then the future of remote learning, we really want to try to perfect as best we can remote learning. Sharon Chassis right now is putting together a survey to send to the learners, the students themselves, the parents, as well as various stakeholders about what worked in this version of remote learning, what didn't work, what were students successful in, what were they not successful in, which technologies worked really well, which ones did not work really well, because we want to make sure that we are getting our teachers ready for when we have to do this again in the fall. And I say that because I really truly believe that this will be a new normal for a while. We did a really good job with this remote learning plan that we did, but I think if we prepare our teachers at the end of the school year for next year a little bit better, I think we can really, really maximize on remote learning. And I'll share that with you as well. The final piece of this is a timeline. It's a tentative timeline right now, except for the first phase, which we've already started this Monday. So I'll just highlight on the tentative timeline and then get into phase one a little bit. So this is our 4-phase plan for reintegrating back to school. You'll see the plan right now that we're in Resumption. It began today on May 11, and we're looking to extend that to June 26. It's a gradual return to on-site work. It's closing out the academic school year, and it's specific remote learning professional development to be targeted at the end of this school year to get our teachers ready again for the fall. Moving past June 26 is our recovery timeline. That's where we're going from tentatively June 29 to August 19, which would be the last day of summer vacation. It's implementation of work site safety measures with a full return to on-site work for our employees, recapturing that lost learning, and then we're looking at an asynchronous summer PD offering. So can we engage in some online summer school with some on-site summer school and small groups of students? We're hoping we're going to be able to do that and offer that throughout the summer. Moving into the school year, which right now is targeted for August 20 as a start of the year school date. We're refining our on-site safety measures, continuing with on-site full work, targeted interventions for learning gaps and needs. This is what I explained to you a while ago, especially with the lower elementary, grouping and regrouping kids, figuring out what their needs are, doing that for the 4 weeks before harvest break, really all hands on deck. And then preparing for a delivery of instruction that could vary either by classroom instruction, remote learning, or a blend of both. So planning for that. And then we're hoping that beyond October 5, which is the end of harvest break, we're adjusting as we need to based on our new normal. So this is our plan for now. And again, this could change all tomorrow. But just getting into the first phase, just to kind of explain that a little bit better, what we're going to be asking of all of you with regards to student is to look at the week of June 1 to June 5 as the final week of remote learning for all students who demonstrated that they were successful in this plan. And we are right now working on identifying those learners who were not so successful and asking them to come back to summer school. Monday, June 22 would be our first day of summer school. And we would probably look at dividing and conquering throughout Valley Unified. So there might be offerings that are happening in Madawaska that, our students here in 33 can, tune into because we're giving them access, or there might be a teacher here offering something that a student from Fort Kent can access as well. I believe if we can divide and conquer, we're going to get the best bang for our buck that way. Our education staff, we would be looking at the week of June 8 and the week of June 17. So that's 8 full days that the teachers need to fulfill their contract. June 17 would be their last teacher day, where we would be looking at 8 full days of comprehensive professional development specific to remote learning. And in addition to the professional development, it's determining where our students are when they left us after remote learning. We're going to have a lot of documentation around where are the students leaving us after this weird new learning, so that we can give as much data and information to next year's teacher so that they are well informed. Was the student engaged? Was the student connected to remote learning? Was the student off the grade completely? Was the student successful? Did they have difficulties? So we're going to have to gather all that data and share that. But more importantly, the professional development we need to figure out is, how do we do this better? How do we do it based on the survey data that we're going to collect from parents and learners? We gave a lot of voice and choice to teachers this time because we had 2 days to prepare. We had 2 days. You all remember we were here on March 16. I presented a plan. We got the teachers in. They worked all that day, the next day, and then we were off and running. That plan gave a lot of voice and choice to teachers because we were all over the place. If we can commit to 8 days of professional development, and that might be on site a little bit, it might be remote professional development, depending on how we can do that. We think we can prepare teachers to provide remote learning, specific ways that are successful with students, successful with the learning, and will help the families as much as we can. For high school students, that might look very different than elementary. For high school students, it's not unthinkable to think that we have some kind of hybrid schedule where we're expecting our students now to tune in on their scheduled time for the class discussion, for the presentation by the instructor, even if they're at home. We're figuring out our gaps in technology, who's not connected, who is. We're getting them the technology they need. If we've refined this in the fall, there's no reason why, if my math class is from 9 to 10, I can't be tuning in from home from 9 to 10 while my teacher's, providing that. Now that works well for a junior or a senior in high school. Obviously for a 5-year-old, it's very different. So we have to figure out what that looks like for all the grade levels, but we're dedicated to providing that professional development, if you allow us, for our staff. And then all other staff, we, sorry, let me see if I can hide this over here. We have staggered shifts throughout the phase on returning staff to work, and it's highlighted right here. We've grouped our staff in 6 different groups. Group 1 is our custodial staff, bus drivers, mechanic. They are on 8-hour shifts effective today. They had some minimized shift because of our social distancing guidelines. Today, they went back to work full time, so that we're having a comprehensive focus on disinfecting the buildings, continuing the lunch program and all of those things. And then we're in summer mode for cleaning. So if you go around our schools right now, we're emptying classrooms, we're treating it just like it's, at the end of the school year, because we know we're not returning for instruction. Group 2, that's going to start next week. Our administrators, that started today as well. Our administrators, directors, coordinators, guidance counselors, central office staff, and IT personnel started also today, on-site work 4 hours a day. All the safety measures in place. So every one of these employees are taking their temperature when they come into work, exercising social distance. If they can't have social distancing, if they can't, they're wearing masks on site. So if you go in the school lunch program, everyone is wearing a mask so that they're safe. We're really making sure that we're treating everything as seriously and as best as we can. Group 3 are school secretaries, guidance secretaries, special ed secretaries, and obviously that's different for different districts. You here in 33 don't have all of those secretaries, but you do have school secretaries and a guidance secretary who will begin on-site work next Monday. They'll start their 4-hour shifts. And our gradual approach to this is though that we can be prepared. We want to monitor this week that we can do this with group 2. And then, phase in group 3 slowly, and then move into group 4. We're going to be asking our school nurses and social workers to also begin on-site work on May 18. We're not dictating an hourly request, but we're saying we want them to monitor staff. We want our nurses to check in regularly with on-site staff. We want our social worker to do the same thing so that we are sure that folks are healthy, they're safe, they're mentally sound where they need to be. This has really played a lot with people, so we want to make sure that our folks coming back are in a good place to do so. Then group 5, that's our school lunch personnel, ed techs, and part-time drivers. If you have some that are working the school lunch program, there are no changes at this time. Those folks are going to continue to do exactly what they've been doing, offering the school lunch program Monday, Wednesday, Friday, prepping on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then our final group, which is our teacher and librarians and other ed techs, we're looking to bring them back or have targeted PD beginning on June 8th, as I presented to you a while ago. So right now, that's our plan. It's not completed because we have groups that are going to be working on the concrete details of our next phases. But this is our initial plan right now. So in front of you, you should have a calendar. Let me see if I can bring one up on the screen.
Mr. Sirwa, Ralph is in the waiting room.
Oh, thank you. You have a calendar in front of you and it doesn't have the colors, your copy. So I'm going to put a colorful one on the big screen. And you'll see that everything was normal until March 16. That's when we had 2 workshop days to prepare for remote learning. Since then, you could see the blue boxes. Those are remote learning days. We still recognize the quarters, we still recognize the semesters, we still recognize our April break, our holidays. What I'm asking of you to approve would be a June 5th end of remote learning day. That would be putting the students 8 days less than they normally would have. Actually, it's 9 because one of those March 16 would have been a student day as well, March 17. So it's actually 9 days less than they normally would have. So the student days this year would be 165. We already have permission from the Department of Ed to waive the minimum student days, so we're fine to do that. There's a lot of schools downstate. I just spoke to my nephew yesterday. We had a family Zoom, and he's ending on the end of next week, whatever that is, May 22, I think. So a lot of schools are ending sooner than that. Speaking with our Aroostook County superintendents, the majority are looking at June 5 as being their end of date. We still have to have teachers finish their year. We're not sending them off saying you're done for the summer as well. I really truly believe that we need to capitalize on those workshop days from June 8 to June 17. Because teachers go on vacation for summer, which they deserve and they've earned. But if we have optional PD throughout the summer for remote learning, we're only gonna capture some teachers. We're not gonna get all of them. And then we're gonna be here on August 20, and some are gonna be ready, and some are not gonna be ready for a retooled remote learning that I'm hoping we don't need to do, but realistically, I'm thinking we're going to have to need it. So I want to be ready with that. So what we're asking for you to do is approve this revised calendar.
So we'll need a motion to approve the revised calendar for this year.
Moved by Gerard.
Is there a second? Lena,
Lena, second.
are there any questions?
Any questions about the entire plan?
The only question I would have is, we're talking about maybe when you reintegrate that teacher, some students would be in the classroom, some students would be remote. Is that feasible that a teacher can do both at the same time?
We don't know what's feasible right now. I know that we have to plan for a variety of possibilities. And maybe when our teams are working together, they may say, if Ben is in school on Monday and Tuesday his remote learning day, the teacher is probably going to prepare him for Tuesday when he's in school Monday. So here's what you're doing today. This is what you need to do tomorrow, and maybe they won't have to connect. Or you might have another thought that's like, well, if they can connect and just providing, some more information on that Tuesday, why can't they receive that information from home? So we'll see. We're going to be testing out some different technology. Our technology committees have met, and they're going to be looking at some really cool technology that actually a camera follows the teacher as they're teaching in class, so that a teacher doesn't have to sit in front of a laptop or an iPad like this. And that technology might be able to help us with some of that. I just know that we need a plan.
Did you say that you were surveying the parents as well?
Yep, parents and learners. We want to know what's working for the kids and what's working for the parents and what's not working for both. We need to know.
What are we gonna do with the students that their parents can't be teaching the students? Because I don't think it's fair for the students when the parents are just essential employees that cannot.
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
their teachers.
So that we need to have a plan for that. We need to have a plan for those kiddos that just don't have the support network. They don't have the grandma who's teaching them every day, or the aunt, or the brother.
I think middle or like high school is okay to leave them up to learn.
Yeah.
When you take elementary school. and
Yeah.
middle school, they need guidance. And
Right.
I'm hearing some parents that keep doing this.
Right. And that's real. I mean, you have a 5-year-old at home. You can't just say, well, go Zoom with your teacher now. I mean, you've got to set that up, and you've got to, make those arrangements. So we have to have a plan that's going to work. And we don't have all the answers, but we're definitely going to scour everywhere. I mean, there's Giselle sent some links, and we get some links from different things. What's happening in Sweden? What's happening in China? How are they doing it? Outdoor classrooms. Can we explore that in the fall and look at, so we're going to be looking at all of the options to make sure that we're doing the best that we can.
Are there any more questions? If not, we'll take a vote in favor of June 5th as the end of the school year remote learning.
All those in favor of the calendar adjustment?
All in favor.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, Ben will fill us in on the senior graduation survey.
Yep. So I'm going to display the graduation survey, and then I'm going to put Mr. Fantasia on the spot and ask him to share some information, but I'll start us out. I have too many tabs open. I think it's this one. All right. So we did put out a survey to the students. It was a similar survey that was put out to all 3 of the high schools regionally. And we wanted to make sure that we were collecting data specific to each high school. The first question in the survey asked if you were a student, the parent of a student, or a staff member. So we wanted data from the students, but we also wanted data from their parents and the staff as well. So you can see here, 48 responses that have been registered so far. The majority of them are the class of 2020. So 23 of those respondents are the seniors themselves. We do have the staff members and a few parents that responded. And then depending on how you answered that, it took you to your own section. So seniors, this is just senior data. It doesn't put the data of the parents or the staff. What is your preferred #1 choice for an alternate graduation ceremony? Choice 1 was a virtual graduation, which would be like this, Zoom, and we're all graduating via Zoom. It's what most of the universities are doing. Choice 2 is a drive-in theater style graduation. In the survey, there was a link. So you can see a link right there that the student could click on. It took them to a news article of a high school somewhere in the United States that did a drive-in theater style graduation. So they had an idea of what that meant. The third one was an outside graduation. Again, another link. This one was a football field graduation. So I think a lot of students, made the connection of maybe on a soccer field, that type of thing. And then the last one was an indoor graduation with social distancing measures in place. So let's have it, the way that we've always had it, but let's limit the participation of people, and let's make sure that we're safe. You can see from here, slightly in the lead was an outside graduation over the drive-in theater and then the indoor graduation. The second question to the survey was when. When do you want to have your graduation? Do you want to have it on the regular date, which is June 13? Do you want to wait till July? Do you want to wait till August? Or do you want to wait till COVID-19 is gone? The majority said they want to graduate on June 13. That's their date and they want to stick to it. And then you had some comments of, folks saying, some classmates might be gone in August, so let's do it sooner than later. Same thing with the parents. You could see their choice also was outside graduation. Their choice also was June 13. And then the staff, their choice was actually the drive-in theater. Second was outside graduation. They also said June 13 as the date. And then we had some comments to back that up. So Mr. Fantasia, now you're on the spot. Did you want to talk about conversations you've had with your seniors and what has come about that?
Sure, just a couple of little bit of background. Before the survey results were done, I had reached out to Van Buren, probably the nearest school in the area that's going to have our size of graduation class. They're actually going to have a smaller class than we are. And they had chosen to keep theirs inside. And they explained how they were going to do that, and it's going to be in the gym, but they were going to limit the participation. So I kind of put that under my hat just to think about it for a little bit. And then I met with our class advisor, Miss Laura Albert, as well as my guidance counselor, Miss Lothrop, today to talk about the survey results. And I also reached out to the Skylight Drive-In as well too, to see what the possibilities would be with that, because the students were kind of close to the outdoor versus the drive-in piece. The drive-in, unfortunately, would not be able to honor our date because they do weekend shows, and our graduation on the 13th would cut into their business. So the earliest date they could give us would be June 16th, which is a Tuesday evening. And I'm supposed to get confirmation about if we can actually do it, and we'll hear back from them tomorrow. So while those things are all in the background, we are kind of thinking about how can we do an outdoor graduation at Wisdom. Unfortunately, our soccer fields are not very easily accessible in terms of getting items up there, having people up there. The traffic would be an issue. So we kind of talked a little bit about the possibility of having an outdoor graduation in the front part of the school where the main parking lot is. So we kind of at this point here, we've got a couple ideas open. We will be meeting with the seniors to kind of, once we get some definite information that we can say, drive in on this night or possibly doing it out in the front of the building. We'll kind of get them to look at these, try to honor as much as the parents and the students' request as possible at this point.
All right. Did anyone have any questions?
Fire
for
away.
Mr.
Ralph, how many seniors are there?
We have 19.
Could always look at Lakeview too. They have like a stage area.
Yeah.
Josh is mentioning maybe perhaps a Lakeview where they have a staging area at the Lakeview up on the hill there behind the campground.
Okay. I'm not familiar as well with that, how that's set up. I mean, I've been there a few times, but I don't know if could they handle the parking lot numbers, you think, the number of people that would be required? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah,
They
they're-
park along the road.
they've had festivals and
There's a
parties.
big field, right?
Big field there as well.
That's at the bottom of the ground on top of it. There's a great big field.
Even if we don't use
Something worth checking out, and maybe,
Yep.
if the Lakeview is okay with it, you could provide it as an option,
Yep.
The view would be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
there's
Oh,
beautiful
Can't beat the view.
I think that would be very positive too, because we'd be helping out a business in the community a little bit too.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Fantasia? Thank you, Ralph.
Problem.
Okay, so we'll move on to Valley Unified Education Services Center.
Yeah, I just wanted to just kind of let you all know that sooner than later, although I will admit it's been kind of nice having a break from Valley Unified. I'm not gonna lie. We are gonna have to re-engage conversations. When we last spoke about Valley Unified, how we're going to move next, we talked about a a think tank, 2 board members from this board, 2 from Madawaska, 2 from SAD27, no public participation involved, not a public meeting, just laying everything out and having conversations around how we're going to make this Valley Unified thing work. I think we're going to have to start that up again quite soon. I did get a call from Scott Brown today, just wondering what's going on. Is there any discussions? Are you guys gonna, and he just wanted to know because there are folks around the department that are asking as well. And I did share him this information. So this will probably be coming. Now, who did we assign to that? Okay, lucky winners. So I'll be reaching out probably next week to set up dates. And I think, we can have a meeting like this in this room with 6 people and myself and be socially distanced and have those conversations. I did mention it as well to 27 in Madawaska, and their reps are ready as well. So I'll shoot out dates and we'll get started. Okay.
Okay. We'll go on to correspondence and announcements.
I don't have any correspondence or announcements, although there is a card floating around. If you could all sign the card for Jackie, that would be nice before you leave. Jackie did lose her sister a few weeks ago, so it'd be nice if we get that card out.
Okay. Go on to administrators' reports.
I believe you did have attached administrator reports.
We've had one from Ralph.
Okay.
And the other administrators who submit reports. Right?
Guess not. Didn't do their homework. Habits of work score going down.
Okay. Then we'll move on to old business.
Under old business, we have our technology contracted services. We all have agreed to move forward with was in technology services as our contracted service for next year. We've already talked about numbers. Right now, we're bouncing contract language between was in technology and 33. There's a couple of things that Zach wanted in there that our lawyers said, no, that can't go in there. And so right now we're just in language negotiation. I think we're pretty close to having that ironed out. Once that is ironed out, I will bring a contract to you to sign. Zach has hired the technician that will be working for you. So even though he doesn't have a contract, he's moving forward as if the contract will happen. We've told him not to worry so much, although, we haven't approved a budget yet, but we just want you to know that we're moving forward. Zach is working with Vince and with Anne Marie, as well as Giselle, on some different things, trying to get us prepared. So during this time that I chose to talk to you about the technology services, I believe, Giselle, did you want to update the board on a few things? Oh, Giselle, you're muted.
No, you're just deaf.
Sorry.
Vince is also on, and I know that Vince was tasked to put in the E-rate application. And I know that we don't have the results, but Vince, do you want to tell us just a bit about the E-rate application? And then I'll come back on, Ben.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. The E-rate program reimburses schools for technology costs associated with projects that they do. Every year you have to file multiple forms before a certain date. And this year we did file on behalf of SAD33 for several projects that we had been talking about at Dr. Levac at Wisdom and at the St. John Valley Tech Center. So there were 3 items dealing with cabling, network infrastructure, that were associated with the possibility of expanding the network there. Also, there were some costs with a firewall installation that's going to happen at the tech center that will allow Zach to better manage the network traffic that's going through there. So all of those items did go through. We'll find out at the end of May exactly how much of that is going to get reimbursed. But I think we applied for a total of $50,000 in reimbursement. We've got approximately 35,000 that we could be eligible for, which would mean that the local cost would be at least 15,000 to get those projects done, but you're getting $50,000 worth of networking infrastructure for that $15,000. So it's a really good deal for SAD33. We had to break down and prioritize which parts need to get done first, because some of them need to get done before others do. So we've done that. We all seem to be on the same page with the sequence at which we should take a look at these. And yeah, we're going to wait to find out sometime this month what the funding commitment decision letter tells us and exactly what that number is going to be. But everything is in motion presently.
Thank you, Vince. Just to reiterate, at the Finance and Facilities Committees that we had the same night, this is 3 or 4 months ago now, we had a pretty large total to bring technology up to par for all 3 buildings in SAD33. But at the time, we had looked at what currently exists in the budget, the IT assistant, we looked for E-rate, and if we deducted those things, our total came out to about 150,000. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, board members, I believe you had opted to go with a 3-year plan with about 50,000 per year. That's my recollection. And so that's what we're going with. So as Vince described, we've set priorities, what's coming first, second, and third. And for example, VoIP phones, voice over internet protocol, is not the first priority, but the cabling for the phones will be put in at the same time as other cabling in order to save a little bit of money. So even though their second priority, we'll do the cabling for them as they come in the future. So I don't know if you have any questions on anything, but that's where we're at with technology. Anne Marie has been very helpful also. And I believe, Ben, is it 50 Chromebooks that Dr. Levac received?
They actually received 120, 118 from the Department of Education. Scott Carter had completed a survey about technology when COVID-19 started, and really overshot how many he needed. We needed about 50 to cover the lower elementary with some of the older technology. We got the full 118, so I don't know if we're going to have to send back some of the others, but right now we have boxes of brand new Chromebooks.
And I think we're buying licenses for.
That's all that was offered. Yeah, it's better than nothing. Yeah.
And I think
John wanted to know why we opted for Chromebooks, and I said, well, that's all we were offered.
Yeah, and we're going to license 50 of them, I believe, the number we need. That's it.
Thank you, Giselle.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to new business. And do we have any retirements?
We have no retirements. We have no resignations. We have no transfers. We do have a new hire, and you probably see a guest with us on the screen. I did write a letter that should have been in your packets with my recommendation on behalf of the interview committee. Cheryl is currently the principal at Teague Park Elementary School in Caribou. She's held that position for 4 years, correct, Cheryl? 4 years. Previous to that, she was the principal of Hilltop Elementary in Caribou before it closed. She's taught a variety of grade levels at Woodland, New Sweden, and Caribou. During the interview, Cheryl impressed us most with her knowledge in education, her commitment to empowering teachers, and to continue to lead our wonderful school. I did speak with Mr. Tim Doak, that he attested that Cheryl is a wonderful elementary principal, and she'll be a nice addition to Dr. Levac Elementary School. In the interview after we spoke, the committee, we were very pleased, very eager, and I even made the comment that I'll call Cheryl tomorrow to let her know that we're and the committee said, well, can you call her tonight? So I ended up calling Cheryl that night. We spoke a little bit, and the next day she let me know that she was on board. So at this time, I am recommending Cheryl Hollowell for the position of elementary principal at Dr. Levac Elementary.
We will need a motion to hire Cheryl Howell.
Motion by Lana,
Lana,
second by Gerard.
Are there any questions? No? If not, we'll take a vote in favor.
All those in favor?
All in favor.
It's official, Cheryl.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Did you want to give a speech, Cheryl?
Well, I had one, but I hate to take all your time. No, this is very
I mean-
exciting. This is very exciting for me. I'm really looking forward to this shift and going back to a smaller school again, which is where my roots are. So it's an exciting time for me.
So very soon, Cheryl, I'm going to connect you with Lisa, and you don't have to peek in windows at Dr. Levac anymore. You
Okay.
actually get you inside so that you can take a look around, and I'm sure Lisa will be very helpful in the transition. She gave 2 thumbs up. So I'll be speaking with you tomorrow, okay?
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move to current openings. Do we have anything?
Right now, the only current opening, and it kind of goes into our next conversation, is what we're going to do about our proposed, what we had proposed for a director of special education. If you remember, my proposal to you all was that we should look to contract that service 1 day a week from Madawaska, as they were looking for a full-time director. Madawaska kept that position open for quite a while. It didn't look like we were going to get any candidates. Then at the last minute, we got a couple of candidates. We interviewed them both, and then we decided to offer the position to one candidate. At the same time that Madawaska was looking for a special ed director, they were looking for 2 special ed teachers at the middle high school level. We successfully filled in one position, but the other one has not been filled. So what when we spoke to the new candidate for the special ed directorship, she was very much in favor of teaching as being the director in Madawaska, but that means that she would not be available to provide a service contract to you this year, because she would be teaching and being the director. So when that all got put together, I thought, wait a minute, maybe we can look at a similar setup here in this district, where you have 2 special ed teachers, one at the high school level, one at the elementary level. Can we look at perhaps offering some special ed directorship responsibilities to one of them? Of course, we would open it up to the district, and only those 2 special ed teachers would probably qualify for that. But I wanted to get a sense from the board of whether or not you thought that was a good idea to fill in our void for a special ed director, empowering one of our teachers to get some administrative leadership, which I think is really a need, and doing so slowly rather than throwing them into the fire, I think is a good way to do that. I'm looking to see if you are all in favor of something like that. And I'm thinking above and beyond their teaching salary, we could offer a stipend for for organizing special ed IEP meetings, or we can word that however. We don't have to give her the official title or give that teacher the official title of special ed director, but we can give responsibilities of a special ed director if they're qualified to do so and willing to do so. So I wanted to get a sense from you all what you thought about that.
I think that's something worthwhile looking into.
I think so too.
Right now, the principals are taking.
Right now, the principals are in conversations with Ralph and Lisa over the past year. There's a lot that goes on with being just a principal. And although we want our principals to continue to be part of the decision-making for special education when they need to, it is a big responsibility to have them running all of those IEP meetings in their own building. So I think having a targeted person in the district to be able to do that, to organize those IEPs and help with that, especially if they know special ed really well, I think it's a good direction to go into.
How much experience do our special ed teachers have?
right now you have one very, very new. Gabby is a second-year teacher. And then your other teacher is Deidre. And Deidre has how many years? Yeah. 5 years. Right. And Deidre is going towards her master's in school administration as well. So you already have a teacher who is aspiring to do this kind of work. So I don't want to say, which teacher would get the position if we post it, but I think if you look at what you have to offer, what you have for staffing that would fit the bill, I think it's quite clear who would be a good fit.
How many students do we have, and are some of our students under the direction of like Cross Lake?
I believe our caseload district-wide is 22. 22 caseload district-wide.
Okay, and are any of those from unorganized territory?
I want to say 2 of them are. I think 2 of them are unorganized territory kiddos.
Is the director for the unorganized territory somebody we would want to consider to pick it up?
The entire caseload?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what the cost for something like that would be, but it's definitely something we could entertain. I'm just looking at if we're going to grow our own in this district, and be able to, put some of our teachers in leadership positions. I think we need to start doing some more of that within house, promoting our current teachers. That was my own thought process to that.
no, that's a good way to go.
And our special education teachers, they can take on the workload of the direct.
Yeah, so like I said, district caseload is about 22. You have some other schools that have a single teacher with a caseload of 22. So they do have lighter caseloads. Not saying that they're not maxed out anyway, but I do believe that the caseloads do afford the option to make this a reality.
So how soon would you talk to these teachers or post?
I would work on this tomorrow. I think it's important that we get things in order to be able to do that. At the same time, and I'm hoping I'm not catching Mr. Fantasia off guard, but we have had these conversations in the past, so I know that I'm not fully catching him off guard. I'm also looking at the athletic director position that Ralph does. And we don't offer a whole wide variety of sports here at 33, but if I'm going to be asking Mr. Fantasia the things that I'm asking him to do with regards to, effectively managing that building, which he's doing wonderfully already, but I think we can take it up a notch. Perhaps it's time to look at offering the athletic director position part of his job, again, possibly to an in-house teacher who we can probably grow into a future leader. And again, I have somebody in mind. I don't know if that will all work out, but I think that if we look at that as well as another mini administrative position that we can start to grow our own, I think that's another one we should possibly look at as well. I don't know what your thoughts are with that. Are you okay with that, Ralph? He's not crying, so.
It would be, it might be tears of joy. I think when we talked about before, I wouldn't mind either having an assistant or, someone else to help take the bulk of it, because while it is probably, I don't want to say it's easy because it's not. I've done it so long, I'm on autopilot, but it does require a lot of time and a lot of other things that you have to take care of that just, it takes time away from the principalship itself.
Yeah, so I was an athletic director when I was the assistant principal in Madawaska. There's a lot of evenings, and if you're going to effectively, do school-wide, evening type things, it takes away from that because you're already going through, games after games, evening after evening, afternoon after afternoon. So I know the work that's involved with that. I think that again, if we can either A, find a teacher in-house who's willing to take on that responsibility because they're involved with athletics already. They have the flexibility of evenings because they don't have an administrative position. Or if we look at contracting it maybe with one of our other districts, if nobody in-house wants to do that. I haven't explored that, but I think it's a way to, I really want to be mindful that when I'm working with my principals on the principalship position, that they have the time, the energy, and they have the flexibility of working within that. That's why I'm asking that the special ed stuff, the athletic director stuff, we kind of separate that from their roles.
I think it's a good idea.
We're getting a lot of nods. Jean, are you okay with that as well, Jean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think this upcoming year is going to be very challenging trying to set up any type of sports activities.
I agree. I agree. And it's going to be challenging for the administrators themselves too, as we look at plan A, B, and C of remote learning or whatever kind of learning that we have.
That's correct.
So I'll explore that further. We'll look to put in some in-house postings in the next few days, and we'll see what happens. And I'll update you as soon as that all comes together.
Sounds great. Thank you. The next item is to consider approving the superintendent's nominations for first year probationary to second year probationary teachers. Okay.
So you have 3 letters, one from Kevin, one from Ralph, and one from Lisa. And when we're looking at our consideration for first year probationary teacher to second year, you'll notice on Kevin's, he does not have one. So we're not looking at anyone on Kevin's list. On Ralph's list, you only have one, which is Tammy Lee Sutherland. Tammy Lee is the one that we hired for the social studies position this year. She didn't do a full year, so she has to come back as a first year teacher next year, is how that works. And then Lisa does not have any. So the only person that you would be recommending, actually, let me change that. Tammy Lee Sutherland and actually Gabby would kind of be in the same boat. Is that right, Ralph? Or are they different?
No, Gabby had a full year, so she was hired to start in August.
Okay, so we're not gonna make a recommendation right now for Tammy Lee because that's a whole different scenario. So the only person you're recommending right now to go from a first year probationary to a second year would be Gabrielle Adam. There are no others on this. So that would be the recommendation.
Do you want to take these individually? Or do you want to?
You can. It's totally up to you. I can explain each one. You can do one motion altogether. The second one would be the second year to third year. If you look on Kevin's, that would be Justine Valancourt. If you look on Ralph's, that would be Sonia Doucette. And then there's none on Lisa's list for probationary teachers. And then the third recommendation would be for all continuing contracts. So that would be the rest of the instructors here on Kevin's list, all of the teachers at Wisdom beyond those probationary, and all of the Dr. Levac elementary teachers. So if you want to make that into one motion, including Tammy Lee Sutherland, who I explained to you is going to return as a first year because she did not complete a full first year this year.
So do I hear a motion to accept all these recommendations?
I make a motion to approve the continuing contracts for all MSAD 33 employees
Moved by Jean.
identified in the items above, including Tammy Lee Sutherland.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Josh,
Second by Josh.
are there any questions?
I do have a question. Isn't this Justine's first year here at Tech, or did she have a year prior at the 27?
Kevin, the question is about Justine. Is this Justine's first year this year, or is it her second year?
It was her first year this year, first full year.
So she'd
She'd be coming
she
back
actually,
second year.
yeah, so she actually should be listed as a first year probationary teacher receiving a second year.
Correct.
Yeah, so we need to edit. Yeah, the letter says second year to a third year. We're just going to edit.
Apologies.
That's all right. First year to second. Thank you, Lana.
Any more questions? If not, we'll take a vote in favor.
All those in favor?
All in favor.
The other letter that you have is my recommendation for administrators. I have two administrators that I'm recommending, Ralph Fantasia and Kevin Lavoie. I'm not recommending Lisa because she's retiring, and I'm not recommending Cheryl because you have already done that. So we have just Ralph and Kevin to recommend, and I'm also recommending that we hold on to Jackie in central office because without her, I would be lost.
So do I hear a motion?
Motion by Josh,
Josh,
second by
seconded
Gerard.
Any questions? Okay, if not, we'll take a vote. In favor? All in favor, then.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to G. I would need a motion to entertain, to enter.
I think
into-
we have a budget workshop in advance of that. Item G, budget workshop number 2, to give you a snapshot of the budget. It might not be on my notes, but it might be.
No, it isn't.
Oh, is it? Oh, is it?
I don't have
It's on the agenda, but
It's
not.
on the
not-
agenda, it's just not on the notes.
not on the notes, yeah.
Okay, so I'll go.
So we're gonna have Lucy update us on the budget before we go into executive. If Lucy wants to.
Oh,
That's. Okay. I know Lucy sent me all of the materials. Oh, Jean, I will send this to you if I can.
I've got the expenditure report and the revenue report.
These are Lucy's budget sheets.
No, that I didn't get.
I'm sending that to you right now. I'll send you a folder and you should have 4 different files in there.
Yeah.
Lucy, if that's what you-
Yeah, I'll.
Thank you.
I did share those.
Yep. Just tell me which one you want me to open.
Okay, I got them all.
Perfect.
We'll start with the summary by cost center,
Summary by cost center.
the sheet with a lot of green on it. First disclaimer is this is a very preliminary budget. This is not the final number. This is not what we would even remotely take to the voters. What this is we've taken all the information from all the parties that have a hand in building budget, your principals, your teachers, your secretaries, anybody who has information that we can build this budget, and we put it all in. So this is basically our wish list. We could get everything, we need to price this out first. In the event that, hey, what if we could afford it, we would do it. The numbers have shown that we would not be able to. So this is our starting point, but it gives you an idea of the scope of the needs that were identified. There are some of the wants in here as well. We always make a differentiation between needs and wants. So we would be looking at, right now, if we were to take this to the voters, we'd have a 20% increase in the budget itself. And then a significant increase. We're not going there. I see that this, we're not going there. As soon as we see the numbers, we know there's no way. Had we been in February or March, our look ahead looks much different than it does today, because COVID-19 has thrown a real wrench into things. It's thrown a wrench into our outlook of what we had to go back and say, okay, now we need to look different. We need to plan for teaching differently. We need to plan for remote learning. We need to plan for different things. And we also need to recognize that our towns are having a significantly harder time than they would have had this not happened. So we always keep that in the back of our mind as well. Taxes are important. We could build a budget, we could assess anything we want, but if they can't collect it, we're no further ahead. So it doesn't help. So this first sheet is basically our quick snapshot. You've got you've got 2 percentages in the last 2 columns on the right. One is the percent increase from last year, so that's the percent difference. And then the one with the purple in between, that's the percent of that particular cost center as it relates to the
we have a mandate that first 3 or 4 sections have to total close to 60%. So when I'm building the budget, I keep that in mind, and anything that has to do with regular instruction, I try to put it in those cost centers. So items that, and I've done that in all 3 budgets as well, that typically we would have put in another section of the budget. So an example is your computer leases. We always had been told by the Department of Education to put those under student and staff support under the technology area. In this last year, the Department of Ed has said, you know what, we'll let you put those in regular instruction because those leases are really going directly to the students. So you're going to see a shift in some of the lines as we go deeper into it with the Financial Committee. You'll be seeing some shifts because of those guidances and the mandates that we're now faced with. The next short sheet you'll see is your summary of expense by grouping, or a summary by expense grouping. So I've taken the entire budget and I've looked at the total salaries throughout the budget. So when we look at that, you've got about almost 50% of your budget is salary. Almost 11% of your budget is health insurance. And by the way, health insurance this year, we have almost a 6% increase to health insurance. And your benefits are about 4.7%. And as we go down the list, you'll see different categories of costs that make up your budget. So the majority of your expenses is your salaries and benefits. So that tells you the amount of flexibility that you really have in your budget. Is there's not a whole lot. When you take salaries and benefits and you place your teachers and your administrators and your technology people, there's only so much you can do with the rest of it. You'll see some categories have increased a lot. That's our wish list. This is not our final tally, but it does tell us where we need to focus our analysis going forward and saying, okay, now we need to prioritize. In here is, the 50,000 that we talked about in terms of the technology infrastructure that we need to upgrade. It's in here. We've got the network administrator in here. We've got the servers, and we've got different projects. Your special ed directors in here, your new principals in here. Those kinds of things are all included in. Now we've got to dig deep and kind of look and see, has there been an adjustment since we built this? We then take a look at, is there something that we can postpone and look further? I also always look back and double check my analysis. So when I'm looking at each line, I'm now looking, oh wait, there's a 50% increase here. I'm going to go back and double check that to make sure that my analysis at the time was good. I look at the budgets as a Scrooge. I call it my Scrooge analysis, my past, my present, and my future. What happened in the past 2-3 years? What's the trend? And what happened in the past? Did we budget enough for that, or did we over budget? So when I do that, and then I'm looking at this current year, what costs are we incurring this year? What savings? What extra costs and whatnot? And then looking with those two analyses, I look to the future. Do we anticipate that this will continue? Do we need to make changes to address whatever's going on? So those lines kind of inform. And then the taller sheets, summary by program within the cost center. These are your groupings within. So your elementary programs, I look at the salaries, the health insurance, the salary benefits. I group them by that so that we're not looking at 1,300 lines when we're looking at it through the finance committee. We can if you want to, but this gives you a quick snapshot so that if something actually decreased in cost, you're probably not going to want to look at it and say, hey, I'm good. I will look at it to make sure I didn't miss something. But this really informs of where do we need to spend our attention to analyze further. So when we're looking at these, and you can hold on to these they're not our final budget, so please don't. I wouldn't share them beyond our committees at this moment. We're not ready for that stage. And then I've got one more. So once I built the budget, I then look at the revenue side. We know that we can't go in anticipating a deficit. You can't go in, the department requires you so that if you plan for a certain amount of budget, you got to make sure you know how you're going to pay for these things. So then I start building the revenue sheet. What did we carry forward? What does the CTE carry forward? What does the school lunch balance carry forward? These are items that basically operate like little businesses within themselves. I can't take the lunch school balance and apply it towards the CTE or vice versa. The local revenue, the EPS local allocation, that is informed by the ED 279. That's the required local. The blue line is the line that I fill in at the very last. I identify all my sources of revenue. I calculate what I anticipate my best guess to be that we would collect. And then the very last place that we get is if we need to go get some additional local funds. If we were to go today, you see the number that's on that sheet. It's not something that would go over very well. That's why we're saying this is not what we would be taking to our vote. The school nutrition program, the amount that's there, that's the amount that we would be going to the voters for the local amount. The school lunch program, we look at total expenses. We look at the amount of state subsidy that we could get, the amount of revenues that we anticipate from the parents and the families and from the other sources. And then the very last is, in order for that pot of money to be fulfilled and be a whole little budget in itself, we need any monies from the local parents. This year with COVID-19, we're actually getting quite a lot more revenue because the state is reimbursing us for every meal that we're serving. So I anticipate that we may not need that 41,000, but I don't know what the amount is yet. So this is my placeholder. I want to make sure that at the end of the day, I've identified that, hey, do we need money or don't we? So those four items make up what we would go get for local taxes. Tuition and fees, I look at your current students that are attending from our unorganized territories, and I price that based on current tuition rates. These tuition rates are updated in December, but we actually build in the new rates that come in each December. If you have any state agency reimbursements first, those are through special ed, and then unorganized territories gets billed for special ed, we would collect it as well. Sources of other local revenues, we bill unorganized territories for transportation. In the budget as well, what I forgot to mention is we also have 2 new programs that are included in the CTE. That's a big increase. We have 2 buses that we put in there. We put the full cost of the buses in there. So that number is scary, but there's really targeted things that we've included. In the revenue side, I've included the 40,000 that we had identified that we would put towards the buses. Interest on the investments. The food service, this is the anticipated revenues from parents. The amount that I have there is the amount that we would collect from the parents themselves in a regular school year. This is a very unusual 3 months. I can't count on this happening again and again, because if I count on those revenues and they don't happen, then we're in a mess and kind of throws our food service out of balance. Sales and refunds, there is an overpayment that had been made that we're collecting on a monthly basis. That's included there. Then the bottom piece with the state revenue, those are numbers that appear on the ED 279. This is the state share of the funding from the ED 279, and it actually increased by 161,000 for SAD33. The percent that the state share contributed last year was 60.4%. This year they'll be contributing 60.3%. So that's a really good. It's a really good shift that we've been waiting for quite a while. The CTE EPS funding also came in higher, an increase of 235 over last year. The ESC funding is the funding that we get in each of the 3 districts because we're part of an ESC. So your share of that allocation is 13,000. And that's on the ED 279 as well. And the main care seat adjustment, the year always starts up at none, but throughout the year, the department determines quarterly what your seat adjustment is, and there's always a small adjustment in your case. Last year, this current year, it's about $1,600. I anticipate about the same, but I did not factor in. And the lunch subsidy, I do anticipate that because this COVID-19 introduced parents to the kind of food that we're serving, and that the kids are actually eating it and enjoying it, I do anticipate that we're going to get a larger participation from the students once school resumes. I don't know that for a fact, but, and we did collect a little bit more than what had been anticipated. So when I add all those together and I've identified where our revenue is, I then go to the blue line and I fill in the number that I need to come up to the total budget amount that we have identified. So that's how we kind of build on the budget. And then once we get to a closer number that seems reasonable, then we build the, what are we going to go get from the locals, and what does that mean over EPS? So that's where we are today. Any questions?
I have a question, Lucy. Using the expense summary by expense grouping, this one.
Yep.
On the bottom where it says vehicles, bus and vans. It says current budget 88,000, next year's budget 180. I understand that. The 88,000, is that transportation costs, or is that, I know it's for this year, but is that their transportation costs?
That was the budget amount for vehicles in the 2019-20 school year.
Okay. So the 180 next year that you budgeted, the initial budget, is that for 2 school buses or 1?
Two.
They're about $90,000 each.
Okay, so I think you're aware, but I just want to let the board know, you've been approved for 1. We're on round 2 for the second one. We're not sure that we're going to get it yet. So that's a possible area also. And my final question, Lucy, I know we talked about ADA today. I don't know what amounts you put in, but is the 48,000 for the lift part of this budget, or is it expected to be a rollover?
What I've anticipated for that is I'm currently trying to estimate and get a better understanding of what we're going to save during this COVID-19 piece. We've got 3 months that we've had significantly lower expenses in certain areas. That generated savings that we could spend before June 30th or carry forward. Right now, I'm anticipating that we're going to want to tackle these projects while we can. So once I get a really, and we already knew that we would have some carry forward, quite a significant amount. So with your, once we get closer to the finance committee and the facilities committee, is to determine, are we going to try to tackle that this year? We're already doing spring cleaning, summer cleaning. So this would be the ultimate time to tackle this before June 30th. So that I didn't include the ADA compliance, because I would think that would be top one for out of all the projects that we do. Something that we have no choice in doing. So it's not included in this budget, but it is in the anticipated needs for this school year.
Thank you.
And for us, I mean, now that we have, like Lucy called it, basically the wish list, now we go line by line and we look at, what's realistic, what's not. And a couple of things have caught my eye since looking at this, that, obviously, that if in the past year, you only budgeted for $1,000 of professional development, but next year, the anticipated is closer to 20,000. Well, we've got to narrow that down. We're going to be having conversations. Like I have conversations with Lisa here about Title I funds that can be carried over that we're not using right now. And I don't know how large or small those are, but we have title funds that we're going to be allowed to carry forward with no penalty and no limits next year. Maybe that helps ease some of these numbers for next year. So we're going to look at that as well. It's just fine tuning everything and making sure that we're doing exactly what's right, still moving forward, but not, it's not wide open. But it's important that you all see the first level of what we get from requests so that you know how much work goes into reducing that.
Still on par with the time frame. Last year, is this when we were at the budget? Has COVID pushed everything?
Yeah, it pushed it way back. So
There's no way we're voting on the 26th.
No.
right.
Okay, so.
God, I hope not.
No,
So
we
we're probably looking into June or the end of
we have to. Well, we couldn't have a meeting in May anyway because you would only allow 10 people there.
Yeah.
So some of the things that some of the Giselle and I were on a meeting this morning. Yeah, but some of the finance directors in the state were talking about how they're having remote sites for voting. So you're broadcasting from your gym, but you might have 50 more people in your rec center. You might have 50 more people in your KFC. So it's remote voting. Everyone's voting at that site, but it's all based on the one meeting that's happening. So we'll figure it out. No, it won't. It can't be a Zoom. People will have to be live somewhere to vote. But where the information is being broadcast from might be I might be broadcasting from one location. Other people might be in another watching me on a screen like this. So we've got to wait for a little more guidance before we can move forward. No, we're not voting on May 26th. No.
So just what number would you guys bring to us, like as an increase? Like our town has seen increases over the years, they're expected. I'm assuming the residents are okay with a certain number, but like what I see, what is it, like 14? Yeah. 14. Where would you bring it?
Where do you want us to bring it? You know this community.
What if we, in the past, we had 4 to 5% was acceptable.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we haven't asked for additional local monies for years.
Yeah,
Right.
That's another thing.
The additional local was we take through our monies put away.
And I have not
Yeah.
touched those yet.
Right.
So that's an option as well.
But this year we have to keep in mind that we may not want to touch that money because of going forward, who knows with the big school, just
Right.
redesigning our elementary,
Right. I think given what's happening in our state, in our communities, to some of our families, I think bringing a percent increase, I would not feel comfortable bringing anything over 5, and even at 5, I would not feel comfortable. I think we have to be less than 5 for me to be comfortable. I don't know what you all think, but that's what I was thinking.
It's gonna be hard to keep it too low because we're dealing with, we have a lot of technology we have to
Right.
upgrade. We got 2 buses, we desperately need. But the technology part is what's bringing this budget up a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Having to do all this stuff.
Plus
You can only phase so many, we have 3 phases for 3 years.
Yep.
But if we phase longer than that, then what phase 1 did, well, it's already obsolete. By the
Correct.
time we get to phase 4. So it's kind of something where we have to spend it because we have to get it done.
Yep. And I think we're going to be relying more and more on technology as we go further down this remote learning
So we
path.
might have to work with the community and say, we might have a little bit of increase because of this extra technology we need to put in.
I think if it's presented the right way, I mean, our community is very okay with student education, so if it's presented the right way and the technology plan is really good, what we've just gone through the past couple of months, I mean, if you don't have the right technology for that.
Yep.
So that's what I find. I think that, COVID-19, it might change some of the minds that the way, I think that past will cut the budget. But now when you say, we're using it for technology because what happened, and so it might be a need to sell.
We do have the CARES funding that is coming any minute, any day. We don't know what the level of that is. But those are funds that can be used to address anything that affected us that you can relate back to COVID-19. So some of the investments towards the remote learning piece that we found that we were lacking, we can probably charge to those funds. Not what, the basic infrastructure within our buildings, but what we need to deliver remote learning, we'll be able to recharge to those funds. The question right now is how much are we getting?
I think Gerard made a good point. I think if ever we're going to be able to sell to our community, enhancing our technology and making improvements, it's going to be this year with all the online learning.
I agree.
So I think that's the area definitely to tackle this year.
And I think I'll be able to effectively communicate that with the public.
Yep. And it's not cheap. Anything that.
No, it's not. It's not ready.
I'll put my budget presentation to song and I'll act it out, and it'll be a showstopper. So we'll make sure that we can sell that baby. Right, exactly.
Thank you, Muzi.
How are you singing?
I'm not bad. I can play guitar. Well, at least I can play guitar. We can do a duet.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is I need a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 405 6D. That's for a labor contract discussion concerning the collective bargaining agreement. And the CD should be 33.
Should be 33.
Should be
Copy
33.
paste. Sorry, unless you want to talk about the other district, but I don't think you want to.
Okay.
Second by Gerard. So Jean and Giselle, you're gonna go into, I'm gonna put you into a breakout room in a second. The rest of you, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you later.
8:04.
Yeah, so just hold on for the breakout room, Jean and Giselle.